It's 1 o'clock p.m. on Monday, July 8th, 2024, and I've moved the sheep to a new row here. It's raining lightly. It's really not raining that much. Maybe we'll get a half inch all day if it keeps this up. It's 80 something degrees. It's perfectly fine. The ground needs the water, but I don't know if it's going to be enough water to really penetrate the ground or if it's just going to stay in the top, layer. One of the stands of grass, I didn't want to show you guys this because it's not really that remarkable, but it identified it as 48% chance of being orchard grass. And I felt it, and it's very different than the Dallas grass, so I believe it probably is orchard grass. I don't see any of it here. It has like a thick leaf, and it has stalks that are like woody. So I assume that's orchard grass. This is a dead turtle. I just found it. I flipped it over, but he was just lying on the ground here. Dead and decomposed, just in the middle of my pasture. I don't know what got to it, but yeah, dead turtle. Interesting. So somebody commented about maybe copper toxicity with the sheep for spraying the copper sulfate on the hooves. As long as the sheep don't drink the copper sulfate solution, sometimes people do a bath of copper sulfate. Zinc sulfate is also an option that people use. And there's like zinc sulfate plus some surfactants or something like that to help it penetrate better. But if you put a copper sulfate bath and the sheep drink that, then yes, they can get copper poisoning, copper tox. If they get access to the copper sulfate crystals and start eating them, yes, they can get poisoning from that as well. But they need a significant amount of copper, more than you think, in order to get copper poisoning. And it has to be ingested, right? I don't know if there's any cases of sheep getting copper poisoning from, contact on the skin. And the other thing too is it's not really just copper, but I think molybdenum. If they have enough molybdenum in their mineral feed, then they can eat a certain amount of copper and it's fine. But without the molybdenum, then they have problems, right? And the symptoms of copper toxicity is kind of mild. It's hard to detect. The most obvious symptom is they die. But by the time they get sick enough that you recognize they have copper poisoning, it's too late. There's literally nothing you can do. There are some treatments, but they're just prohibitively expensive and they're not that easy to find. And so if you suspect your flock does have copper poisoning, there are some treatments you can do before symptoms appear. They're not very dangerous treatments. They're just expensive and they're probably not worth it. As long as you're not feeding copper sulfate crystals to your sheep, as long as you're not giving them access to minerals that aren't designed for sheep, because pretty much all the mineral solutions have lots of copper in it, and as long as they're not drinking the copper sulfate solution, they're probably fine. So spraying the hooves of sheep with copper sulfate, giving them a foot bath of copper sulfate, as long as they don't drink it, is perfectly safe, right? So I'm not concerned about copper toxicity at all. Especially from a topical application. We're just putting it on the skin. And I think it'd be kind of silly to think that that would cause copper poisoning. So that was just a comment that somebody made kind of offhand. I don't know if he was joking or not, but if you're concerned about copper sulfate causing problems with copper toxicity in the sheep, I would invite you to do some research on hoof rot and hoof scald, okay? And see how bad that can get and what kind of problems it really causes in your flock. And the treatment options, there's really not a lot of treatment options for it. If you're not going to go the application route, then you want to have them eat some kind of medicine, some kind of antibiotic or something like that. And none of those medicines are really things that I really want to give to my sheep. I don't think it's appropriate to give it to my sheep. And hoof rot is contagious. So if you don't really nail it, it can spread to your flock. And one thing I intend to do is, as I start to get the numbers, is I'm going to start filtering out the sheep that show possibility of hoof rot or hoof scald. So I'm going to start breeding it out as much as I can. For instance, Gami, I think that's Gami right there, he's somewhat prone to it. So I'm trying to stay on top of the application of the copper sulfate. I'm just trying to keep it as a mild or non-existent case, but he's not going to breed, so I'm not going to let him breed. If I had a lot of sheep and I wanted to get rid of a bunch, then I'd probably go to his mom and maybe even his grandma and just cull them and just mark that whole line for culling, you know. So because of their proneness to hoof rot and hoof scald. One of the best treatments for hoof rot and hoof scald is rotational grazing. This cannot be emphasized enough. A lot of the sheep disease happen because they stay too much on one piece of pasture, or they're grazing too close to the ground. Now, when they left that last pasture, on the east side of that pasture, the grass was taller than the sheep. Okay, they were having a hard time moving through the grass. They'd had to jump to get through it. So there's plenty of grass for these sheep. They're way overfed. They're not grazing close to the ground unless they want to. They have a diverse set of forage they can choose from. They can graze on the weeds or different kinds of grasses, and they get plenty of shade and plenty of rest. There shouldn't be any issues with this flock. The one thing that's working against me is the climate. Sheep do not do well in hot, humid climates. They just don't do well, you know. And I know that I said that Dorper breed is prone to parasites. I should clarify, the Dorper breed is a parasite-resistant breed of sheep, okay? It's not the worst breed of sheep out there. However, in a hot, humid environment, all sheep are going to have problems, right? Even St. Croix will have problems with parasites, right? And so the Dorper, compared to St. Croix, have more problems, you know? What's the treatment for parasites? Again, rotationally grazing them, you know, moving them. The guy that I bought these sheep from, he thought he had a parasite problem, so he started moving the sheep every day, you know, every day, fresh pasture, not going back to the same spot of ground for months at a time, you know, and that's really what we got to do here as well, is just keep the sheep moving, right? Keeping them on fresh pasture, on fresh grass, and getting them the chance to get all the nutrients they can possibly have. Healthy animals don't get sick, right? And how do you get healthy animals? Well, you keep them out of their poop and pee, you give them clean water, and you give them good food to eat. Okay, and rotational grazing produces the best food they can possibly eat with the most nutrients. So anyway, that's all I have to say on that, guys. I'm excited about this row. I'm excited about the amount of forage I have. One thing I was thinking about is combining the herds, because July 1st, that's about when we breed the cows and breed the sheep. It makes a lot of sense in July and August just to combine the herds so that I don't have to worry about keeping them separate. And that's something I thought about doing, but maybe what I do is I bring the cows here, you know, rather than bringing the sheep there, because the forage down there is probably not good enough to support the sheep and the cows. So maybe moving the cows forward. I think next year I'll plan for combining the herds in July and August, and then splitting the herds in September. I think that's kind of the ideal. If it weren't for this bull, I would be doing it right now, but I need to get this bull out of here. So guys, have a great day. Take care and bye-bye.